Hi, welcome back to the final episode of this painting, and welcome back to Anyone Can Paint. We're going to pick up where we left off last week by putting in these weeds. You recall how we put this in a little thick, and then you're going to grab your brush and you're just going to lift and kind of pull and lift that color up so it works into this. And this is how you get this series of layers and depth in here. So we're going to continue on both sides of our path. And I started getting a little bit light here, so I'm going to go back in and darken this up. And you can actually go back when this gets dry, and you can lighten areas up and paint right on top of this again. So it's really kind of foolproof. So we're going to go into some blue, some green, maybe a little bit of yellow just to lighten this up a bit. And I'm just going to put this right in like that. Remember, this goes on kind of thick, so I'm going to grab some blue, get that in there, just bring it right up against that bottom of your building. And then you just go in and grab some of this paint and lift up. Again, you want to make sure that you bring it over top of the bottom of that so it really kind of helps set that building down in the grass. I'm going to grab a little yellow just to kind of lighten some areas up a bit so it's just not one flat color. I'm just going to grab some more paint, just blue and green. And down in the corners, you want to get those a little on the darker side, so you can add a little bit more blue to this. Again, just kind of go in, lift up. And as you're doing this, if you get to a point, I'm going to lift this up so I can get this bottom part. If it gets to a point where you're just kind of mushing around paint and you're not really getting brush strokes, what you need to do is, because now you've got a thick buildup of paint in your brush. Now what you do is squeegee some of that out. And then you can go right back into it. Because when you have it all caked up with paint, you're not going to get those little brush marks or the bristle indications on there, because it's just kind of blobbing it around. Down here, just kind of get that in like that. But again, this area is darker because this is in shadow from that over there. And we're going to slide over on this side, again, blue and green. Get a buildup on your brush. A little bit more blue in that corner there to darken it up. Take some of that out. You go back in, put your brush right in that, lift it up. Again, you can work right over the edge of your path if you like to, if you want to kind of get that a little bit thinner. There. And again, hopefully you can still see all those little bristle marks that are in there. Those are the things that are going to give you that look of weeds and grasses. All right, let's clean the brush out. And I'm going to stay with this brush because I want to go back in and make this edge a little bit brighter so there's a little bit more yellow in it. So I'm just going to grab a little bit more yellow right on my brush. I'm going to come in here and put some of that in like that, just to kind of brighten this edge up a little bit. And also right there. Again, now wipe out the excess. Go back in. And lift and pull that back up. And just work this down right into that other color. This is how you can go back and make things a little bit brighter if you feel you need to. And then we'll clean that out. All right, we're going to have some fence posts that are in here. We're going to put those in so those get a chance to dry, and then we'll go back to another area. Then when those get all set up, we'll come back and work on those. So we're going to switch brushes. We're going to go to the medium flat bristle brush, and we're going to make a mixture of some blue and brown. And this can be half and half if you want, and you don't have to overly blend it. And we're going to come up here. Now, these posts are going to be much larger than what those are, thicker and probably taller, because remember, these are much closer to us, the viewer. So these are going to be pretty good size. Now again, these can be leaning and kind of falling over. You can have some that are straight up. You can have some of the posts that are going across. The cross pieces kind of have fallen. You can do a lot of different things here. It doesn't really matter. But you want these to sit down into the weeds. And I'm going to reload. I'll be right back up. Let me put one there. See, these are taller and wider, thicker than what those were back there. Maybe we'll have another one over here. Goes like that. And we're going to put some on the other side, so we're just going to jump across the path. Maybe one goes like that. And we'll just put a few in over in the side too. And then you're going to put some cross pieces in wherever you'd like them to go. And we'll put one that goes across there. Now you can see I'm kind of picking up the color underneath from our weeds. So if you were doing this at home, you may want to maybe allow this to dry or blow dry it. And you won't have to contend with picking up the color underneath. And we'll put one that maybe is falling down. It goes like that. And again, when you do yours, you know, however you want to do yours, it's fine. And then we're going to have to go through and put highlights on this, obviously, and then we can go back and determine, kind of like we did back there, are the cross pieces in front or behind these posts here. But that's all determined when we put the highlights on it. Over here, we'll put one that's kind of falling down like that. Maybe there's a bottom one that goes across. I may have to redo these. Maybe one that shoots off there. All right, let's clean out the brush. We're going to let those set up and dry. Now we're going to work on our path a little bit. We're going to stick with the same brush. Now, whenever you're doing a path or a river where you've got a split between weeds, shorelines, whatever, a good indication of where you need to put highlights and shadows are at is that if you've got lights on both sides, then that needs to be light there. And kind of think of that river or the path, whatever that is, kind of connects the light. As you start working down and you get into the shadows, that's where your shadows need to come into play. So your lights need to stop right where your weeds stop with highlights and go into the shadows. Your path has to follow that same thing. Because it wouldn't make sense to have highlights all the way down here when everything here is dark. So if you've got light on both sides, then that needs to be light also. So we're going to grab some white. I'm going to stay with the medium flat bristle brush. A little bit of brown. And I'm going to add a little bit of blue to that maybe. Geez, not that much. There. And we're just going to work this. Now you can paint over these weeds if you need to. See, I just kind of knocked some of those out right there. This is going to be bright like this. And we're just going to incorporate that into this area because this has got to get brightened up a little bit more anyways. But when you're doing these strokes need to stay pretty much horizontal so it looks like it's flat. If you do it like that, then your path is going to look like it's tilted that way. It's the same thing you got to be watching out for when we're doing rivers and streams. Is that if you want it to look flat, you've got to make that pretty horizontal as you're putting in the strokes. And I'm just going to incorporate this so it looks like all this kind of goes together. And this is just kind of hit and miss. You don't have to make this thick. I kind of like, personally, when you have some different color changes. You know, there's some areas that are brighter, some that are darker. This, I think, it makes it a little bit more interesting to look at. Let's not clean out the brush. I'm going to put this back down so it can stay in place. There we go, because we're pretty much done with that bottom area for now. Add a little bit of blue to that color. And this will get to a bluish battleship gray. And this is going to be our shadow color for our path. And this is going to work right in there. I'm going to put a little bit more blue and brown in that, darken it up a little bit. There, that's better. And this is going to work right up into that light area. And this is going to cover the whole path down below. You need a little bit more blue in here. There. Again, you can allow some of your underpainting to show through. That's perfectly fine. And then up on this side, remember our light's coming in from the right. We want there to be a cast shadow from these weeds. So we're going to continue bringing the shadow right along the edge of that so it kind of gets a feel for some height. And again, you're going to stay with your horizontal strokes. I'm just reloading. I'll be right back. With your horizontal strokes and run that right along the edge of that path. And make that edge really irregular so you have some areas where it looks like it's a little bit taller and stuff. So again, it kind of gets that feel for the shape of the tops of those weeds. There. And we'll clean that brush out. Now, before we go work on those posts, because they're still a little on the wet side, we're going to go back and we're going to make these a little bit brighter. I want that to stand out a little bit more. So this is going to be some white, a little bit of brown, too much brown. There we go. And we're just going to go in. I'm just going to wipe off a little bit of the excess. And again, make sure you're following your strokes. These have got to be basically vertical strokes. And you can hit this as light as you want to or as heavy as you want to. I'm just kind of barely skimming. Sometimes you can turn your brush vertically to get a little bit sharper edges. I'm not covering everything up. I just want to get the overall feel that this is a little bit brighter in here. Where it looks a little bit, maybe a little bit stronger sunlight is hitting this. I'm going to do the same thing to that little small building over here. Just kind of brighten it up a little bit. Just lightly skimming, because that will give you one effect. And if you want to turn your brush vertically, that gets you a different one. So it's whatever you would like to do here. Yeah, I think maybe we'll just kind of brighten up a shingle or two here and there. Maybe we'll brighten just a little bit of the edge on these. And I think we're going to put a little bit on this back here, just here and there. Because there's trees and things, and maybe this is a little bit of light that's kind of sneaking through. We'll put a little bit of highlight. Since we got this color, we'll put a little bit on the edge of that post. All right. I think the next thing we'll do, those posts are still a little on the wet side. Maybe we'll put part of the door that's hanging here that's just kind of hanging off. Maybe there were two doors, one's just totally broken off and is gone, and this other one just maybe is just hanging a little bit. So we're going to go in with some dark colors, some blue and brown. And we want this to look like it's hanging a little bit. So this should be a little bit darker than what you got in the background. So maybe just come like halfway, and it just comes down like this. And again, it just kind of looks like it's just hanging off the hinge almost. Now, if you make that look a bit more of an angle than that, you bring it down, then it looks like it's tilted. And that's really how you want that to look. Then, while that's wet, it's not a big deal. We'll go in with a lighter color. Same with brush, same medium flat bristle brush and just lightly hit this. And again, kind of suggest some boards. Now you can almost afford for this to be a little bit brighter because this dark is still wet. So if you happen to be doing this and you wait till this is dry, you may want to tone these colors down because they're not going to blend and mix like mine are. And you really want to make where this door and that wall, or part of that wall there, there's a difference there, whether you want to make it bright or not, but you want to make a distinct difference there so you can see the difference. And I just put a little bit brighter on that. And I just have my brush vertically, and again, just kind of going through and making that indication of some individual boards. And then I'm going to clean that out. And now you can go back in with dark if you want to make some splits or some holes in that door. You can certainly do that. Again, this is some blue and brown. And I just had some of that mixture that was still wet from when we did the post, so I just add a little bit more blue to it to darken it up. Chiseled edge again. Remember how we do that? We put the paintbrush in the paint, pull it through, turn it over, stick it back in the paint, pull it through again, and you end up with that nice little straight fine edge, and that's what we're going to use. Back up to the canvas. This is where you want to hold your brush way back on your handle to kind of help promote a little bit of looseness and freedom in your stroke, because you don't want to get real tight and make everything perfect. You want this to kind of look like it's been there a long time, and just kind of let this happen. And these again are the little splits and little holes and things that are in the door. I should add some over here. Maybe that's broken off. But you can just spend a lot of time just playing with this. Maybe I'll do a little bit over here too. Yeah, it kind of shows up a little bit better. Really can show these holes and the splits. Maybe we'll darken some of these up here. Oh, we got to distress that roof yet too. We'll do that while I've got this brush in this dark. And if these darn posts ever dry, we can get to those. I'm just going to reload the brush again, chiseled edge. Up here, this is where we're going to take out some of the shingles like we've done before. And again, if you do this kind of quick, then you don't get too fussy and trying to get things proportionate, and just kind of let this happen. I'm going to grab more paint. I'll be right back. Again, I'm just reloading with that dark color and getting a chiseled edge. Maybe we just knock this whole thing out right there. But you can do up, down, sideways strokes. All right. Then we're going to grab a little white, mix in that color, so we just make a light grayish color. Don't get it really light, because remember all the sides in shadow. Chiseled edge again, and we need to go through over there like we've done here and put those little cross pieces, support pieces that are in there. So maybe one goes across like that. And I'm just lightly touching, trying to keep that chiseled edge intact. Just kind of lightly touching, just suggesting. There, that's really all you have to do. All right, let's go down and start playing with these posts. I'm going to stay with this grayish color that we were just using. We need to put a little bit of highlight on the right-hand edge. Now on these cross pieces, this is where you're going to have to determine, are they in front of those posts or are they back behind it? So on those we did it where they were in front, let's do these ones like they're behind it so I can show you both ways. All you're going to do is on your vertical post, the stroke comes all the way down, your highlight. So if you want to do those posts first, now it'll kind of help remind you I'm just going to reload. I'll be right back. And then I'm just vertically touching this and just kind of tapping, just to kind of give the indication that it's catching a little bit of light. Now again, hopefully yours is dry when you do this, because it'll be a whole lot easier. And don't make these perfect. I mean, these are old posts, been there for a long time. Don't try and get all your highlights to be exactly right. Just kind of, again, I don't want you to feel like you have to race to do this, but if you apply some of these techniques quicker, you get a more unique shapes and designs and things, because you're just not spending a lot of time trying to make things perfect, and they just kind of look weathered and old and broken down on their own, just because you're not spending a great deal of time trying to get them perfect. So as you're putting the highlights on these, you want to stop when you hit to the edge of the post, because you want those highlights on the vertical post to be in front of those. So it's kind of like that. You want to cross over it. So the highlight would go like this, and then it's going to stop there because that board cuts in front of that one. And we'll put a little bit of highlight on this one. Again, that stops when you hit to the post. Again, that makes that look go behind it. And I'm just going through and just kind of lightly tapping, just kind of bouncing my brush. But I'm stopping when I hit to those vertical posts. Now, if you'd rather have those posts look like they're in front, all you got to do is to continue with those highlights so they cut in front of the vertical posts, and that brings them forward. I'm going to hit some of these posts a little bit more. It's starting to dry, so maybe we can get it a little bit brighter so it shows up better. There we go. But again, just tapping and just kind of just to get it no regular kind of a look to it. There, that really kind of helps push those back. All right, let's clean out the brush. Now we're going to go to our small flat bristle brush. And I know that you've been riveted to this painting for this is the 5th week, and you're saying, but Steve, there's not even any rocks in this painting. And I know that you're just dying to see some, so we've got a couple extra minutes. Maybe we'll throw some of those in there. I just hear everybody moaning right now. Just getting some blue and brown, and just kind of here and there, just kind of we'll put some out in here in the dirt area. Just kind of make a nice little collection of some small ones. We can put some here along the pathway. Now these can be a little bit larger because they're getting closer to you. I'm going to clean that out. You guys almost got through this whole painting with no rocks, huh? All right, now I'm going to grab a little bit of white. Get white with a little bit of blue to it, or I'm sorry, brown. Chiseled edge again. And again, these don't take very much to do. Now what you want to watch for on this is that it's going to be really easy to get the same color that your ground is. So you want to change that up a little bit. Make it a little lighter maybe. But watch the direction that you put these on. Everything's coming from the right-hand side because of the light. Now in here, those are in shadow. So we got to change that up. So now we need to add some blue to this color. And again, you got to watch that you're not making the same color as your path. And again, you're going to put the highlights on the right-hand side. And if you can hear that in the background, you think it's thunder. It's not. It's a really nice day today, and I think some of the folks that have motorcycles have finally had a chance to get out and run those around a little bit. And we hear them going by once in a while. Although it is supposed to rain today, but not yet. There, and you know how I feel about rocks. I mean, I get razzed about rocks all the time, but I think that it's kind of really can bring out a different shape to landscape. Sometimes you're always talking verticals and horizontals and things like that, and it's kind of nice to break that up. I'm just going to clean out that brush. And I see just a couple spots I want to go back and hit with a little bit of highlight. And these are just accent highlighting. It's just wherever you feel like you need to maybe bring out a little bit more. I just want to brighten that edge so it just kind of stands out against that background a little bit. And I'm just barely hitting the canvas just to get that look of some boards and some texture. Then you may have to do this too, because remember, acrylics dry a little bit darker. So while you put that on, you think like, well, I put that on really bright. In a couple minutes, you know, they're going to dry down a little bit. So sometimes you have to go through and hit them, you know, a couple times before you get to that lightness that you're happy with. So, but that's just the nature of it. Well, I think we got the gist of this. I hope you tried this. I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than what we've done, but it's a lot of fun. Take your time with this and just work on a section at a time if you want. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you really enjoyed this painting. You can do this. I promise you you can. We'll see you next week, and remember, anyone can paint.